You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. The U.S. and Israel launched attacks on Iran over the weekend, striking thousands of targets and killing top commanders, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. 4 U.S. service members were killed in retaliatory strikes by Iran. So far, the conflict has expanded to include Middle East neighbors. Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging fire, and Iran has hit targets in Gulf states, including Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. Here in the Pacific Northwest, Iranian Americans watched with a mix of trepidation, hope, and fear. Most are still reeling from the Islamic Republic's brutal crackdown against protesters in early January, which is estimated to have killed tens of thousands of people. I attended a vigil Sunday afternoon at Seattle City Hall, where the local Iranian community gathered to share art, music, dance, and healing conversation. They were there to memorialize those who lost their lives and now to process the start of war. We watch as a woman dressed in black descends a staircase surrounded by electric candles. She sways and spins using a flowing red scarf and the line of her body to show pain and strength. Independent artist Parmita Ziai says dance lets her express a depth of emotion that can be hard to put into words.
Today, I wanted to share that pain and grief that I have personally been feeling, but I also know everyone collectively is feeling, and for a moment, maybe share a moment of healing together.
That feeling of solidarity was echoed by Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, who joined the gathering.
What we share here with the people of Iran is wanting to be able to live a dignified life and to have a say in how we are governed and to be able to determine our own destiny collectively, right? And that's what, at a really basic level, I think those protests were about, and something that I think we can all resonate with here.
Every year, the Seattle Isfahan Sister City Advocacy organization holds a Nowruz, or Persian New Year, celebration at City Hall. This year, they decided to change the gathering into a vigil. In the lobby of City Hall, paintings and photographs commemorate the suffering of families and friends whose loved ones went to the streets in cities across Iran in January to speak out against a repressive regime and never came home.
My whole family are back in Iran. So when there is an event with the magnitude of this, you're every day thinking what's happening to them.
Marjan lives in Issaquah. She didn't want to share her full name out of fear for her family members in Iran. She created a slideshow of names, faces, and stories of the confirmed dead.
You look at these pictures, there are kids between 14 and youth of like 23, 24. And the capacity of the sorrow is unbelievable. We need to know their stories and tell their stories, because the truth is, if you look around the world, it's happening everywhere. And if we don't tell the stories, the next future may repeat it again.
Many Iranians in the Seattle area and beyond have celebrated the news of the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the dictator who assumed rule in Iran in 1989. Still, it's an uneasy feeling.
He was an evil man, and the blood of many innocent people's blood is on his hand. But also, I'm very worried who's going to replace him. I am concerned for the extent of this war, how many more innocent lives going to be lost.
Mitra Freer said it was healing to gather with other Iranians and commemorate the sacrifice of protesters who risked their lives for freedom. But with the start of the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran 48 hours prior, she was transported back to her experience living through the 1979 revolution and the Iran-Iraq war of the 1980s.
I've been through a revolution and a war, and all this memory all came back, and I have a first-hand experience what my people going through. So it's been tough. How I process it is, it's hard to connect with my family back home right now because the internet is down right now. So I've been able to talk to some of them briefly because the connection gets disconnected, but it's very hard.
Every new headline brings an overwhelming, conflicting mix of emotions, says dancer Parmita Ziai.
We've all been waiting for some kind of relief to happen, and through the death of the supreme leader, for a moment we all celebrated, and I never thought I would see that happen. And so it was a moment of relief, and at the same time it's like we all hold many emotions at the same time. We are all worried about our families, and we have been, but it's just really, really hard to know what's going to happen.
And she says she's frustrated that, once again, Iranian people are living with the consequences of decisions that are not in their control. You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman, turning now from the local Iranian community's reaction to the start of war to some analysis of this widening conflict in the Middle East. The joint U.S. and Israeli strikes followed weeks of conversations between the U.S. and Iran over that country's nuclear program. The war has now impacted countries across the Persian Gulf. Joining me now is Reşat Kasaba. He's a professor at the University of Washington's Jackson School of International Studies, where he focuses on the history and policy of the Middle East. Thank you very much for being here, Professor.
Thank you.
So I just want to reflect on what we've heard first from the U.S. government about this war. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, held a press conference this morning saying that Iran posed a threat to the United States because of ballistic missiles and drone technology. The Trump administration said less than a year ago that the country's nuclear program had been eliminated by U.S. strikes. Obliterated was the word that was used. Obviously, the power of Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, and their network in the region has diminished over the last few years because of the war in Gaza. How much of a threat was Iran to the United States before the start of this war?
Well, I think one of the things that's very disturbing about this war for a lot of people now, including me, is that I guess the U.S. decided to go to war with very little internal debates and discussions and normal decision-making process that exists in a normal White House. It sounds like this was decided primarily by President Trump, thinking that it would be a very short kind of intervention that would lead to massive demonstrations and the change of regime without much U.S. involvement. Any long-term kind of discussion of these issues that would normally include people who know the region and the history would really point out to a number of things that I think are coming to be true right now. One of them is that, in fact, the Iranian regime is very weakened, and all signs were, including the messages from Omanis who were mediating the discussions before the war, was that they were coming close to agreeing on a number of issues that had to do with nuclear weapons and other problems, which would have led to a more kind of a negotiated solution to this. So all signs were that there were no really immediate threat from Iran. Obviously, their weapons, whatever existed, are not in a position to reach the U.S. mainland. And I think that this kind of conflicting messages we heard this morning from the Defense Department and the White House shows that there were no discussions or meetings that would have led to a uniform message, at least from the U.S. administration, about what the goals are, what the reasons are, what the time frame is. So that is where we are. It is very uncertain how this will unfold, but it is very, very worrisome.
What do you make of Iran's response so far, Professor? I mean, after the initial strikes by the U.S. and Israel, Iran has retaliated with missiles and drones aimed at Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. What do you make of sort of the way that this has widened to include Iran's neighbors, not just Israel and the United States?
I think The Iranian reaction, I think, is just shows that this is a regime that is really determined to survive in one form or another. And one of the ways in which they think they can make that happen is by making this as costly as possible to the United States. And from what I understand, the ships that are in the region are not close enough to Iran for Iran to reach them directly. So what they're doing is that they're hitting U.S. assets in these other countries, and also making it costly for U.S. Allies, especially hoping to lead to massive oil price increases and disruptions in the oil trade in the region. And all of this is aimed to make it costly for the United States, especially for the Trump administration, which I think they think that will lead U.S. to go back to a negotiated a solution of this.
Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed by an airstrike on Saturday, but we don't know what's going to happen with the leadership of Iran going forward. We understand that there were layers of the government that have, lost a lot of people, the layers of the leadership. And so this sort of vacuum at this point leaves a lot of questions. What do you expect to see going forward in Iran when it comes to the leadership of that country?
I think sometimes people make the mistake that taking out, someone like Ali Khamenei will lead to a collapse of the entire regime and eventually a transition to a different kind of arrangement. I think Iranian government, Iranian regime, the constitution on which it operates, built this almost like a parallel structure in the country. And the more important parts of the government, Iranian government, are in the hands of a complex set of people and offices that handle security, intelligence, operations in other parts of the Middle East, the militia. And this is a huge bureaucracy that tentacles of which reaches to far reaches of the Iranian society. And this is not only military and security, but this organization also has very intricate relationships with the country's economy. Investments, trade, and all those things. Ironically, of course, these sanctions always end up hurting the people who are not in a position to obtain goods, but people in positions of power who are able to make sanctions themselves as a source of profit and enrichment for themselves. So this is a very wealthy and well-organized and structure that has penetrated Iranian society. So their survival actually is essential for them. So it is not really realistic to think that a sizable number of them will just turn around and support some alternative regime or the United States. So I think they will do all they can to survive. And in the meantime, the constitutional process, such as it is in Iran, is operating. They have identified a group of people now who will be who will be taking care of the government, and then they will elect a successor to Khamenei. And I think if out of that an Islamic Republic that is less belligerent and less interested in regional adventures and perhaps a bit more inclusive domestically, some arrangement like that, I think might be the best solution for the U.S. at this point. Otherwise, I'm afraid the chaos will continue to spread, which will, contrary to what President Trump had promised initially, this could lead to one of those never-ending conflicts in the region.
We should say that the Iranian Red Crescent says that Israeli and U.S. strikes so far have killed 555 people across Iran. How likely do you think that is, just in our final minute here, Professor, that there would be a government taking over that is less interested in regional power and influence and more friendly to the United States?
I think I'm not, the material destruction and the killing of people, etc. I think that is a huge tragedy, and the longer this lasts, the numbers will keep going up. Children, students, etc. And if I can add, I know we're out of time, but this comes on top of a very long and sad sort of history of relations between Iran and the West and the United States. It goes back all the way to original oil agreements and the military coups and the U.S. support for Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. So there is already a deep sense of skepticism about U.S. Interests or plans in the region. So this will be one more chapter, which I'm afraid will push these things back even further if it continues much longer.
Reşat Kasaba is a professor at the Jackson School of International Studies. Thank you very much for being here. And as a former student of yours, it was a thrill to have you on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Libby. Thank you. I like the program, and thank you for being interested in the subject.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.